Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Sometimes we just have to knuckle up and fight for what we believe in. And you know what? If you can hear the sound of my voice, then that must mean you are in the seats with once again. As always, my name is Dave Voigt. I am the host for this venerable podcast where we talk with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and pick their brains, not just about current projects, what got them into the business, the state of the industry going forward, and all sorts of fun stuff in between. And, if you need to find where this podcast is located, I would recommend that you subscribe to us over on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or you can find everything archived over at our YouTube channel at In the Seats, so you don't miss an episode. And if you want even more news, please follow us on the social media, as it were. Either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of fun updates. And most importantly, please visit us where it all started over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for the latest and greatest movie reviews from not only new release stuff and VOD, stuff hitting theatrical, where there is theatrical, but also festival coverage as well, because we try to cover as much as we possibly can from all corners of the globe. On today's episode, we talk with director Paul Leyden, and we talk about his film Chick Fight, starring Malin Akerman and Bella Thorne and Alec Baldwin. And it's a charming comedy. It's an R-rated comedy, but which it holds to that. It's funny as hell, but it actually has some pretty inspirational messaging to it as well. And it's going to be on most VOD platforms this Friday, November 13th, and we highly recommend that you check it out. And when we talked with Paul, we talked about sort of the origin of the movie, the difficulties in getting it made. He did most of his post-production in post, and just sort of the movies that inspire him and sort of what got him into the business. And it was a fantastic talk, which I certainly hope you enjoy, because I know I did. Well, I mean, obviously, first off, let me just say thank you for coming on, and I just want to say thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
Now, I mean, first off, congratulations. I love the movie.
That's
only
excellent.
is it committed to being like an R comedy, but it really does sort of still find those sort of inspirational fight movie beats at the same time.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through sort of the initial moment of, this script comes across your desk and it's like, okay, now I'm going to be involved?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think with, I've said before with this film, or in movies in general, when you go into pitch things, when you're sending an idea to your agent, going, I'm thinking of this movie. It's like this meets that.
Yeah.
It's classic in Hollywood. Even when movies are reviewed, it's always like Die Hard meets Breaking Bad or something.
Right,
like that.
right.
And look, sometimes it's a good shorthand way of pitching a movie, and people go, oh, okay, all right, I can see that combination. So when the script came across my desk, I'd just finished shooting another very female-driven sort of action comedy series called Cleaners, which was on Sony's digital network Crackle, with Emmanuel Shrieky and Emily Osment in the lead role playing sort of female assassins. And this movie kind of came across my desk at the right time because I was sort of inspired coming out of that. And when I read it, it really felt like Bridesmaids meets Fight Club. And so it was a unique combination, and a combination I didn't expect. And yet there was something in it that it wore its homages on its sleeve. It wasn't trying to hide them. It wasn't trying to go, we're being overly clever about this. It was just saying, we're going to pay homage to these types of films in an R-rated female comedy setting. And that's what really drew me to it. I thought it was funny. I knew that, when I dug into the script as well, with once the actors came on, we could even sort of bring out the funny a little bit more and bring out the heart a little bit more. And so it was a really, a fun one to shoot. So loving action movies as well as sort of fight movies and comedy. I thought, here is a unique opportunity to do something all in the same, in the same realm.
Well, and I mean, I think that's really what struck me, because it's the kind of film where it could have gone a little too cutesy, or there could have been those sly winks to the camera, but there really wasn't. And I'm kind of curious, how did you want to sort of manage the tone of it all? Because, like you say, it is very much Bridesmaids meets Fight Club, but it could have gone, it was true to both of them, I think is the right word to say.
Right.
And like, how did you sort of navigate that line?
Well, again, they're two great movies. So, I mean, look, there are people that hopefully love this movie. I'm sure, there's a lot of people who are, may not enjoy it as much. So saying it's Bridesmaids and Fight Club were two great films. One's a great comedy and one's a, beautifully subversive, another great film. So when putting them together, I'm not comparing this to either one of them. I'm just saying, as a point of reference. So tonally, I think with this, Bridesmaids was a very funny film. And they had, the studio budget where you could sit on a scene for an entire day and keep feeding lines until, the editor in the editing room had lots of options. We didn't have the luxury of that. We were on a very tight schedule and a smaller budget. And so it was really important to manage that tone going in, to make sure that we were all in the same movie. We have an incredible cast. Stand-up comedians, seasoned actors, from Alec all the way down to, Dulce Sloan, who is an incredible stand-up comedian, who this is her first kind of really, big movie. So I wanted to make sure, firstly, I was once an actor, so it's important for me to make sure we're all in the same movie, that no one's doing anything too broad or too slapsticky or too, that it is grounded. So that was one thing in managing the tone. And then with the fights, it was very important to me that we over-delivered on expectations about women in a fight ring. And that came down to, firstly, designing the ring. I wanted a cage. It was almost like I said, if an MMA cage had sex with a boxing ring, this would be the result.
Yeah.
It's half boxing ring, it's half cage, so we could really explore that space, which is unique. So we could really sort of, choreograph with Shauna Galligan, the fight coordinator. We could really choreograph fights to the space. And then also I wanted them to be really good. I didn't want it just to feel like they're in there slapping each other around or being, what people may have preconceived ideas about what in inverted commas, chick fight means. So I really wanted them to be tough and as much as anything you would see in a male-driven fight movie. So that, again, was really important in managing that tone as well, to make sure that, the fights and the comedy and the life of these characters all lived in the same film.
Well, I mean, I think that's the other thing that really stood out for me, is because, especially in the fight sequences, I mean, I don't know how long you were on that particular set, but just you had that place covered. And I mean, it just, from a shot perspective and just from a look perspective, it really did feel probably bigger than the actual setup actually was. And it created a really huge environment.
You have no idea how we were able to drive Abdullah. And I appreciate that. I'm glad you noticed that. I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I'm not sure whether I'm meant to talk about budget and schedule, but let me just say that we needed an extra 2 weeks in that fight club and we didn't. So we went in there very long. And so I knew that it was the toughest week. There you go. That gives it away. The toughest week of filming. And it's a decent, it went out to be about 45% of the movie were in that fight club. So it was a lot of coverage, not only dialogue, but also the fight sequences. And I needed the fights to build in sort of different dramatic beats and to suit where the story needed to be told. And so when we found this location in Puerto Rico, it was this really strange, abandoned warehouse that had been built on top of an old house. It was such a strange amalgamation, and it was sort of condemned. So I had to, and then we looked at a lot of different warehouses, and I kept coming back going, that's it. We don't have to set dress it too much. We don't have to do anything to the walls. We don't have to do anything to the ceiling. We have to sort of seal up some holes to stop the rain. and we had to clean it out so to get rid of all the black mold. But it was just lived in. It felt gritty and real and like. And then I said to my production designer, my Lara Santana, I was like, I just see the female touches, and I just saw lights. Yeah. It was almost like the women of the Fight Club. If they went to a flea market on a Saturday and they saw an eclectic lamp, they would buy that for $5. And next time they came to the Fight Club, they would give it to Bear, who runs the Fight Club, and she would find a place on the wall. So the entire club had chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. None of the lamps were in the same story because they were eclectic. Some were from the 50s, some were from the 70s, some were from, so it gave this depth of field to the entire place.
Sure.
And it gave it this life, and it gave this instant lived in feel to make it feel like this is a communal space that, again, even though there's a lot of competition and rivalry between these women, and it was a communal space that they loved, they respected, and they wanted to spend time in.
And I mean, I love that you just use words like communal and sort of lived in space, because it really did have that sort of feel of being a character all its own. And I'm always kind of curious, when you get to shoot on one spot for so long, is it a blessing, a curse, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, this one, I mean, look, again, we didn't have long enough there. I was up against it every single day, and it was really a really hard, 6 days that we were in there, because we had a lot of, my DP is a phenomenal Steve Heller, and we wanted to give, we had a lot of fluoro, again, with all the lights going on. Yeah. They had to be on the same different grids, because we had to, it was a lot of pre-rigging. That helped it quite a bit. We had to pre-rig that set quite a bit. And we did, much to the disdain of, we wore masks on this movie, like face masks, before it was cool.
Right.
Because we had a smoke machine. So before every shot, we had to sort of, because we wanted that smoky, diffused light feel, so we pumped smoke in. At first, everyone's like, oh, this looks amazing. By the end of the week, everyone's like, my producer's coming up going, we can't use any more smoke. People are like really not happy. And it's, it's organic, and it's not going to hurt you. But after hours and hours,
I'm sure, yeah,
it starts to take its toll. So look, I was thrilled with the result. I was, again, due to the commitment of the actors, due to the commitment of the extras, the stunt performers, the doubles, the crew. Everyone dug really deep, because they knew what we were getting was different and fun and quite cool. So, but there's no doubt once we wrapped on that scene, no one shed a tear. I'm actually wondering where the cage ring went. I feel like there's something in that. There's some new sport to be had.
I'm sure it's still in Puerto Rico somewhere. It's
probably still in the condemned building being used as a real fight club. I wouldn't be surprised. We had so many security guards who had to lock that place up every night, because it wasn't in the most, safe of neighborhoods.
It's the marriage of MMA and pro wrestling all in one cage.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the film has such light to it, as obviously you just spoke about sort of visually, but also in the casting as well. And there is such a great balance for people who know how to be funny, but know how to sort of turn it on a dime and sort of be serious in those occasional dramatic moments. Someone like Alec, who really does bring a certain obvious comedic skills, but for that one scene towards the end when he has to sort of half be serious, it completely works. And walk me through sort of finding the right people for the right roles, because I mean, especially in comedy, that's always so key.
It is totally key. And again, like I said before, you can have the best comedians in the world and you put them in the one movie, and sometimes it doesn't work because everyone's sort of in a different film. Individually great, but you've got to, there's got to be consistency across the board. And I think this cast found it instantly. I think everyone was excited by the prospect of this movie and what they were engaged in. Again, for the message, again, for the fun of it. there's no doubt a lot of them were just so excited that, oh, I get to do this fight. I get to be in there. I get to kick ass. Like, oh, that's cool. I've never got to do that before. So it all stemmed around Malin. I mean, Malin Akerman, who is not only an incredibly talented comedian, she's an incredibly talented dramatic actress. She's also one of my dearest friends in the world. So I was able to, once I got the script to a place where I was happy with it, and the financiers were, I was able to just sort of go, I said to them, what about Malin? And everyone's like, oh, are you kidding? I mean, of course. So I was able to, go directly to Malin and say, listen, I really like you for this. What do you think? And luckily for me, she responded instantly, and we were able to build around her. So from her, we, came Bella, and then came Alec, and Alec he responded to the material, and I was in Paris at the time because I had a TV show in development there. So I was talking to him, and then I got the script to a point where he was content to sign on. And he wasn't with us for many days. We shot him out, but boy, there's not enough words to describe what a pro that man is. Firstly from his hospitality of wanting to just be on set the whole time. He never left set once he's on it. And, Puerto Rico can rain when one drop of rain comes in Puerto Rico, right, a billion come within a second. So everyone scatters like they were shot out of a cannon. But Alec just sat there, umbrella up, just waiting for it to pass. He's just such a sense of calm and cool. And, he's got stories that are just riveting. And here I am, working with this master. And he really brings the funny, and then he brings the serious, and he's just on. And then, there's other people like Dulce Sloan, who was a real discovery for me. She was a stand-up comedian. She's a correspondent on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. But I really loved her stand, and I wanted to discover someone for that role. We had some famous people. We had enough recognizable names, right, that I didn't want that role. It was such an important role. For me, I saw it as the Melissa McCarthy type role in Bridesmaids. It was someone who could just come in and steal it. And I think Dulce did exactly that. And then, we get someone like Kevin Nash, who is, again, paying homage to the whole wrestling world. He's the
core of the movie. He's the most grounded character in the whole thing.
There is Kevin Nash, a Hall of Fame WWE wrestler playing, I won't give it away, but playing a very unexpected turn. And just fantastic. Like, again, just all the cast had a good time. They were very committed. Again, none of them were getting their quotes. This wasn't a big budget movie by any stretch of the imagination. So everyone just really enjoyed the camaraderie of working, on location, on a familiar but unique piece of material in a fun setting. So I think, and as you said, I think it shows. I hope it shows. I'm proud of it, and I think at the end of the movie, people are going to have a smile on their face. They're going to get what they came for. There's not going to be any, I think, hopefully not too many disappointment, and they just go, it's light. It's a likable film, and I think that's what we all need at the moment, is to just step away from movies and go, oh, I just feel like that was fun. I feel like a little lighter before we step back into to the real 2020.
For you as a filmmaker, is that sort of the ultimate joy? Because I mean, as with anything in life, there's going to be jobs where we may not necessarily be happy with it, but the checks are clearing and it's fine, and I can move on. I can do something else. This obviously feels very personal and feels very sort of emotional for you, because like you say, it may not necessarily have been a movie where everyone got their quote or everyone was, buying a new house or lighting, heating the pool or that kind of thing. It's the kind of movie where you feel proud of walking away from.
Yeah, those people in this movie couldn't afford to heat their pool as a result of the paychecks. But it's you've got to. I mean, look, again, you go into a film, sure. I mean, there may be, not for me, I haven't done anything whether it's a paycheck movie. Everything's sort of quiet. You've got to do things where a filmmaking is not about calling action, calling rap, and walking away. It's not only a year of your life, but this script came to me probably at least 2 2.5 years before you even started to film.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of commitment to, if you work out on a rate of what you're getting paid to by the time the film comes out, it's so less than minimum wage. It's like, it'll work out to be about 5 cents an hour by the time you work out the time that you put in. So it's like you have to be committed. You have to think that you're making something a little special and something that you think an audience is going to appreciate. And you never know it's going to come out in 20. COVID was just was an itch was just a little blink in our eyes when we wrapped it at the beginning of Feb. Who would have known by the time the movie comes out that a film with this kind of message, this kind of sense of fun, is coming out at a good time. I mean, wouldn't have known that when I made it. I made it for the purposes of again creating something really fun and special and entertaining. And I hope that right now people need that more than ever.
Well, and making a movie is the equivalent of pushing a boulder up the hill, and it
really is
rewarding when you get to the top.
Well, yeah, and I mean the boulder gets pushed up the hill, it falls, it runs you over, it crushes you. You go, I'm sick of that boulder, and you're like, I'm not going to touch that boulder again. And then a day comes, and when someone goes, hey, what about that boulder? And you're like, damn it, okay. And you go out, you push it back up the hill a little bit. And, it's not until you get it, it's not until the movie comes out that, it's really at the top of the hill. And I've been editing, my wife is French, and we made the move to Paris at the beginning. When I finished wrapping on this movie, a few weeks later, I was in Paris with her and our toddler child. And then the quarantine, the lockdown happened in Paris. So I had to then go to Switzerland where her dad has a hotel. And I've been editing. I keep saying this movie feels like it's on the run from Interpol. I've been working on this movie in more countries. I edited in Paris, Switzerland. I did the sound design and the working with the composer from Belgium. Where my wife is shooting she's a lead of a TV show so we've been shooting here for 3 months. So I haven't been in the same room as my sound designers. I haven't been in the same room with my colorist. I haven't even met in the same room like the composer I used for this. There was music, there was original sound tracks scored for this movie by an amazing UK band called Bones UK, who I adore. And Malin Akerman's sister, Jenny Akerman, did a lot of original, none of that happened in the same room. Yeah. So it's been really an amazing and crazy experience doing post-production on a film in these pandemic times. It's been quite eye-opening and amazing to see the commitment from everyone involved to hit the right schedules and deadlines as films need to do.
For you as a filmmaker, can you sort of boil it down to one movie or one moment where the light bulb went off and you said, okay, this is what I got to do. I got to tell stories this way.
Yeah. Look, I went through, I'm Australian. I grew up loving movies. I wasn't that, by far, would never say I was that kid that got out in the backyard with my Super 8 or my VHS and made mini movies with my G.I. Joes. I never did anything like that. But I was always obsessed with, watching films, especially a lot of horror movies when I was younger, and I still have quite an affection for. I've got quite an eclectic mix of stuff. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff in development ranges from action to comedy to horror to real life crime drama.
Yeah.
So it sort of runs the gamut because I think that's the stuff that I've always responded to. But when you're coming back to your question, I don't think there was one moment in a movie, but I think there was a collection of movies that really inspired me. And I think I can bring it down to a handful of those times you sit in a cinema and everything cinematically for you tilts a little bit.
Right.
I've always loved movies like Cool Hand Luke's one of my favorite movies of all time. But that, I never sat in the cinema and watched that. So for me, sort of as a kid of the sort of the late 80s, 90s, I remember watching Seven and going, wow, that was a shift. There was a tilt there. It was Seven. It was True Romance.
Okay.
So I was watching True Romance, where again, there was that holy shit moment. It was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh, great. Yeah.
It was Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
So it was something. They're the ones that kind of come to, and of course Pulp Fiction. So it was those ones that come to mind, that those handful that I was in the cinema for, that I would return to the cinemas and watch them over and over to the point where I was often the only one in them. That I think influenced the way I see story and see film, but also just, I keep coming back to, they're all masters, that's Fincher
Right.
and Tarantino making up that. But it was those films that all did something quite new and with storytelling. And again, I'm not saying that I'm doing anything like that with Chick Fight. But I think they were the movies that would kind of inspired me to keep staying in this world.
Well, that's great. I mean, I guess just to put a bow on this, and this is a silly question I like to ask, but Chick Fight's a comedy, but it's also a fight movie. Can you pick a Desert Island fight movie? And can you pick a Desert Island chick comedy?
Wow. Okay. Look, I keep referencing it. So for chick comedy, female-driven comedy would have to be Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
There was just something so fresh and unique, and just the chemistry of those moments. And everyone, you can always the wedding dress fitting scene. Everyone can just instantly will put a smile on your face just by mentioning that. The chemistry between the cast, and again, it was comedic performances of it was a masterclass, I think, from across the board of comedic classes from obviously Kristen Wiig, and then there's Rose Byrne and Melissa McCarthy, and then even it was sort of Rebel Wilson's breakout as well, just in the small stuff that she did. It was just really just everyone was it's just in top form. Fight movies. I mean, obviously, the fight movie runs a bit of a broader gamut, because there's obviously all the Rocky movies, which are seen as fight movies. For me, I'm really drawn to a lot of Asian, cinema, especially Korean and Indonesian cinema. Some of my favorites. So for fight movies, I will sort of more put my favorites more into more of action fight movies. That's fair. It'd be like The Raid, Raid 2, Redemption, which I just think is beyond genius. Gareth Evans. I literally just finished watching his series Gangs of London. The guy's just an absolute master when it comes to action, and someone I've got the luxury of working with in the future is Timo, who directed another great fight movie called The Night Comes for Us, which is an incredible Indonesian action movie.